Good evening and a warm welcome to all our viewers to the day 2 of the Commercial Real Estate E-Summit. We would like to thank our sponsors, Birla Aircon Building Solutions, a part of HIL Limited, a CK Birla Group company, a leading manufacturer of world-class building materials like fiber cement boards, cement sandwich panels, AAC blocks, and many more. And Blue Star Limited, India's leading air conditioning and commercial refrigeration company. Let us find out what we have in store for us on the day 2 of the Commercial Real Estate E-Summit. Commercial Real Estate E-Summit, powered by HIL Birla Aircon and Blue Star. Today we will begin with a keynote presentation, followed by 2 panel discussions. Let us move on to the keynote session. Adaptive Technology in Corporate Real Estate. Keynote by Cory Ticktin, Gensler, on Reimagining the Future of Office, Opportunities for Resiliency.
Thank you for having me today. Pleasure to join all of you in speaking about what we're calling the Reimagining the Future of Office. And so my name is Cory Ticktin, Design Director with Gensler, and I'm located in our Bangkok offices here in the Asia Pacific region. I work across the entire region, including India. So I work all across India with our offices in both Bangalore and Mumbai. And so pleasure to be here with you today. At Gensler, we're putting together, and through our research and our Global Research Institute, we're doing a number of research projects where we're looking and reimagining the future of different kinds of projects: office, retail, hospitality, back to airports, a whole series of things that we've put together. And so today we're going to talk specifically about the future of office and really what we see today, what's been happening today, and what we think tomorrow is going to look like, and then furthermore, what we think the future is going to look like. We'll also be talking about how we weave those ideas into wellness in the office environment, both inside and outside of our buildings. And then we'll also talk a little bit about resiliency and sustainability. So with that, I will share my screen. Okay, so reimagining the future of office. Okay, so some strategies for resiliency. So in a time when employees have expanded their choices on when and where they want to work, so not always working inside the office space, but also working outside, what really compels them to come to the office? Why would they want to come to the office, especially in a world that many of us will be working from home? What would drive them to really come to work in the office? And what are some of those behavioral patterns? So at Gensler, we do a lot of different surveys globally. We work with thousands of clients around the world. And so we're taking that research and learning from that, what's happening in other parts of the world, and bringing that to bear on the projects that we do for myself, specifically here in Asia or even across India. And so we can see some of the metrics and why people would really want to come back to work and not only work at home. And really, I can say probably the number one factor is really about collaboration and being with people. That everybody understands that the workflow moves quicker, it's more efficient if they can work with people and not just on a Zoom call or a go-to meeting all the time. And so you can see some of the metrics from our work from home surveys. And really, it's this research that we're doing that's really leading us towards imagining or reimagining the future of the office and what it should be, what it should look like in the new normal when we do come back to the office. Some of the areas that we'll be looking at will be these components, these parts of buildings, from building entries through elevator systems, looking at exterior spaces, and again, weaving wellness into all of this. We'll talk about resiliency ideas, and then at the end, we'll talk a little bit about Fit Well and Well building certification, which is something that everybody's concerned with now in terms of how to make our buildings cleaner, safer, more secure, and also provide better the human experiences as far as healthy places to work. So I'm going to go sort of through each of those subjects. The first one we'll talk about is building entry, and you all know that the common, typical building entries of today have, doors with, handles and things that we need to touch. And what we're seeing now is going to be technology is going to change. We're going to see more sliding doors where they're really touchless. We're also going to see the integration of technology into our building entrances and our lobbies, so that everything is on sensors, and where you really don't need to touch anything to do all of the activities that you need to go to from the front door of the building to your desk and even into the restrooms. And so today we have, doors that we're all used to opening like this, where we open and touch handles. In the future, we're going to start to see touch sensors where you actually don't have to touch. You actually just have to get your finger in close proximity, and then the doors will open again, so you can stay in a kind of a safer, healthier, more well environment. And in the future, we'll even start to see facial recognition. So you won't even have to make a movement with your hand. As you walk into the building, the sensor would sense your face, and the doors would open for you automatically. Some examples of some of the buildings that we're doing. We're renovating buildings already to create openings like this, where the building slides open. This is actually in one of our headquarters buildings in downtown Los Angeles, where the entire facade of the building opens up, where people can just walk in and walk out. You see another example here with sliding doors. There's another better picture of that, where the entire facade just opens up for the building entry. So now we don't have to touch things, and we create a nicer experience, if you will, where the building can open to the outdoors and make it more seamless to move from outside to inside, and vice versa. Once we get into the building lobbies, so going to where we are today, that idea of people moving from outside to inside the building, everybody comes in one single set of doors, so people are bypassing each other. As we've learned from the recent pandemic, that really separation is really a better methodology. And so you can see this diagram where people come in one passageway, people come out the other passageway. So we create that separation of people. That's what's going to happen in the immediate tomorrow. We may start to see spaces like this on the ground floor, wellness kinds of spaces where people can, if they don't feel well, they can really be isolated and get some rest, and not really be part of connecting with people up inside the office space. And then in the future, we may also start to see where, large open spaces, bigger spaces, not tight, confined, small lobby areas. And again, everything seamless, touchless, automatic. So, here you may get scanned in by just showing your phone to the building security system, and you move through security and not have to take out a card, or visitors may not have to get a card as well. We're seeing the same kinds of activities happen in our parking areas, where we go from parking spaces into the building lobby. So again, seamless, touchless ideas and ways of payment and access into and out of the building. So, this is what happens today, where you swipe your card and or sometimes you have to take a card. In the future, it'll be IoT technology, where you don't have to do that. You can just hold up your phone, and you don't have to exchange a device that somebody else may have handled. Parking systems will also become more automated as we move forward. I do a lot of work in India, and we're starting to employ this in a lot of our projects. Automated parking systems are starting to come into being. And then we'll start to see other kinds of things, like the image on the center, where from the parking, you just go straight to your office space. You may not go through a lobby necessarily. You may be able to just sort of bypass that lobby where people are commingling, where you can just go from there straight into your office space. So those are some of the ideas that we'll see as we make those connections from the parking structure or parking way into the building. bicycle facilities as well. And you know, when we think about wellness, more and more we're implementing bicycle facilities in buildings, even in hot climates like India and or in Bangkok, where I'm at now. Traditionally, people wouldn't really be riding bicycles, but now people feel safer riding a bicycle, as an example, not getting on public transportation, within public transportation systems. And so we need to be smart about how we do that and incorporate those facilities within our buildings. So today, you know, we may see some bicycle parking areas in some of our buildings. You know, we start to mix with a lot of people. We may start to see separated, you know, really more separated, segregated systems. We always need to be conscious of providing lockers and everything touchless. So, you know, sensors on the lockers that can open automatically, showers and some of those things. And in the future, we may start to get also facilities like this where bicycles are really isolated. Here, you know, you bring the bicycle inside of a compartment and it closes, or, you know, real single use sort of spaces, so that we don't get too many people gathering together in any one location. So moving on now to vertical transportation, there's a lot of things happening in the vertical transportation world to really help us not touch things anymore, make it more seamless. So we're looking at, there's a lot of very innovative systems where people enter elevators from one side, come out the other side. As an example, I think that sort of horizontal separation and two-door opening elevators is what I'm referring to. You know, everybody's probably familiar, many are familiar with the destination dispatch, or destination control system, which allows you to come in and swipe your card and the elevator takes you to that floor where you don't have to touch anything. So we do have systems like that. You know, the old system of touching buttons, and we get crowded lobbies and crowded elevator cabs. And so in the future, we're going to see, you know, we'll see more of the destination control system. This system is quite prevalent in Asia, but not necessarily in the rest of the world. So we'll start to see in the other parts of the world where people can come in and just go to their floor, and really they don't have to touch anything but just swipe their card in front of the sensors of the elevator. Well, we will see increased ventilation in elevators, and you know, I know here in Thailand we have you know, limits on how many people can go in the elevator, and I'm sure you all do as well, where, you know, there's markings on the floor and only 4 people or 6 people can go into the elevator. We're also going to see, you know, again, you know, more touchless technology where you don't actually have to touch. It's just a sensor that senses the heat of your finger that allows you to operate the elevator. Moving on to restrooms. Restrooms are, you know, a place where germs can gather, and you know, so how to create a more, you know, thinking about wellness and cleanliness, and how to create a better experience for the users, and also more sanitary. So, you know, traditional restrooms like this, where we have to come in one set of doors, we bypass people coming out, people coming in, we're touching handles and opening doors into toilet stalls and things like that. So in the future, you know, this is the more traditional way. We may start to see gender neutral toilets. And so we have, instead, we can have fewer doors, fewer access and entry points, where we're sharing restrooms among different genders, and, you know, have common lavatory areas. We may also start to see where restrooms are more open. So no doors, where you can come in and then you can actually, you know, you can actually have sensors that open doors or whatnot, but really trying to avoid doors and the need to really touch things, and making each of the toilet stalls self-sufficient. So if you notice here, the lavatory is inside the toilet stall. So it's not there's not a common sink where everybody can stand next to each other. You know, one person might be ill and somebody else is not. Here you can be in your enclosed apartment, go to the restroom, wash your hands, and then you leave the restroom, and you don't touch any doors on the way out. So this is the way our restrooms are commonly today, as you all know. Tomorrow we'll start to see, you know, the common, you know, more common restrooms, gender sharing, like you see here. Doors may also start to become touchless, and, you know, activated touchless doors where you don't have to touch anything. And then in the future, we may even start to get sensors not only to open and close things and turn things on and off, but also ultraviolet light to clean the restroom and clean spaces when they're not being occupied. Okay, moving on to HVAC systems within the office buildings. You know, we're going to start to look for increased filtration, increased ventilation as a way to keep the space cleaner. We may also start to look at other kinds of technologies. This is our Los Angeles office as an example, where we have radiant cooling. So we don't have to, we're not blowing air systems. You know, we're not doing the traditional system where we're blowing air, where the air may blow and, you know, go from one person and then pass air to the other person. This is just radiating cold air or hot air if need be. And so it's a little bit more healthier type of system than the traditional forced ventilation systems. Air handling units, you know, this is quite common, but not everywhere in the world where we have, you know, we like to keep HVAC systems on a floor-by-floor basis so that if somebody were sick or there's an issue on a particular floor, it would be contained to that floor and not spread throughout the entire building. In many buildings, especially lower-rise buildings, you may have central air systems on the roof that supply air to the entire building. Those kind of systems will become more obsolete, and we go more to the floor-by-floor isolated type of system. We'll also start to see, you know, biophilia and, you know, other things like that start to improve air quality within our office spaces. And so I talked about the ventilation systems, you know, and really dialing those up. This is really what happens today. In the future, we're going to see more filtration and you know, new kinds of filtration to really enhance the air quality. We'll also start to see operable windows in buildings, maybe operated automatic operable windows like this. This is the PNC Plaza in Pittsburgh, where the windows open automatically. You don't have to touch them. And you know, previously buildings used to be hermetically sealed. We're going to start to see them become more porous and open. This is the Shanghai Tower that we did in Shanghai, the second world's tallest tower, where we have, as a way to mitigate the heat from the solar conditions, we actually have a double facade. So there's an office tower inside and an outer skin on the outside. So we dissipate the heat inside an atrium. This happens to be a series of 15-story atriums. The benefit to that is now we don't need as much ventilation to cool the office space. So again, we save energy, but at the same time, we create a healthier workplace on the inside. This is a project where the entire structure is an adaptive system, adaptive facade system. The building is also entirely made out of wood. It's a 34-story office tower in Toronto, where we work with Google, Sidewalk Labs, which is a division of Google, to develop this 34-story office tower, highly sustainable, highly well clean, air quality inside the building, and no steel, no concrete, completely made out of a wood facade, wood system structurally. And then we're going to start to see, and you'll see more examples in a few minutes, where we're seeing buildings now with more outdoor balconies. This may look like a residential building to you, but it's indeed an office building, to create that, you know, that wellness aspect, to allow people to get access to fresh air and, you know, increase daylight and give people places and varieties of ways to work. Like this project is in Los Angeles, where people can work in the building, or they can come outside and they can work as well. And they can therefore get out of the office environment and be away from people. So that porosity in buildings, that choice in buildings, you know, makes it more well and gives people that variety. So more interesting place to work potentially. This is a project we're working on in Los Angeles, where we're looking at operable windows, you know, on a super scale, you know, kind of a garage door scale, where you can really open up the ventilation in the building and allow the building to ventilate. Other areas, you know, things like this, where you can have larger scale openings move airflow through the building. This is the breathable facade. This is that PNC Plaza in Pittsburgh that you saw a small photo of a moment ago, where the entire facade ventilates itself and breathes to take advantage of outdoor air conditions versus indoor air conditions. Signage and wayfinding will start to happen in all of our building lobbies, so we can make announcements of what's going on in the building, what's going on in society, what's going on in the city. So signage and wayfinding and graphic design will become important parts of our public areas, as well as things like this. This is a project for Dalios Well Building Institute in New York, where digital technology and electronics can tell you everything that's going on in the city about your trip home. These messages can be tied to your personal cell phone. So as you walk up to the screen, it displays information that may be particular to your case, how long it'll take you to get home and whatnot throughout the day. We're already designing spaces like this where we're trying to take some of the energy or some of the heat off of the elevator systems, creating more well environments inside buildings by allowing people to move up and down between floors more seamlessly, creating a healthier environment for them and not being stuck inside of an elevator cab close to people. So spaces like that, other spaces like this is a renovation of a building in Los Angeles. It was an old retail center that we're converting into office space and creating a number of office areas and terraced areas outside, again, providing places for people to work, movement between floors in outdoor environments. Maybe you can kind of see here, up through the atrium and even these outdoor spaces. So people don't have to take an elevator necessarily. Here's another view of that. So they can move on the outside of the building where, be away from people versus being inside the building. There's another example of moving from a parking structure directly into an office building. This is also in Culver City in Los Angeles. So people now don't have to go from the parking garage down to the ground floor, in an elevator, walk across, mix with people inside of a lobby, and then go up inside. They can just go directly across, and then stairs on the exterior of the building where, if they happen to work on that floor, they can come on this floor and then they can go up a flight of stairs to get to their floor. So really alleviates the need and tries to take the heat off of the elevator lobbies and main lobbies on the ground floor, therefore trying to just decrease that amount of congestion. Here's an idea of putting that on the outside of the building. This is also in Los Angeles, where we can allow people to move right up on the outside of the building, right to their floor, and not have to go through a lobby up, even 2 flights in an elevator. They can just do it outside, and therefore in a more healthy, cleaner environment. This is a view of our Los Angeles office, interconnectivity between floors that provides a healthier environment for movement, keeps people healthy walking up and down stairs all day. So you've all seen ideas like this. This is another view of our project in Los Angeles for Netflix at the building called Icon. This is the building that we headquartered in our Los Angeles office. This is in downtown. Outdoor amenities become really key. So, providing places for outdoor places for people to go outdoor, not only within the building, but also at the ground plane, in open spaces, parks, plazas, and what have you. Amenities on the building, so on the building, this is what we might see today, where we have some balconies here and there, maybe a little bit of rooftop balcony, maybe some balconies cut into the facade. What we're going to see tomorrow is that, but at a hyper level. We're going to start to see much more open spaces and amenities for people to really get access to the outdoors and away from the office space. So larger scale terraces. You can see some in here. This is a project in Singapore. So park, this is up inside the building. Vertical balconies all across the way. This might look like a residential building. It's in fact an office building, another office building. So ways that we can bring air into the building, get people outside, providing different places to work, and also help ventilate our buildings at the same time. So more areas of outdoor terraces and linking spaces across, so people can move, across, within the building envelope, they can move from one space to the other and not do it inside of an elevator. This is our Los Angeles office, bridging two buildings together with just a small bridge versus taking people down to the ground floor. This is a renovation of a 44-story tower in Los Angeles, where we've created spaces like this within this office tower, up inside, maybe 20, 30 stories up, sliding doors, allow people to get access to outdoor area for meetings, for additional workspace, and again, allow that air movement and provide that necessary or desired amenity within the office space. We do need to remember that when we put these outdoor spaces in and balconies and terraces, that we provide the proper drainage and the proper materials and proper live loads and things so that they can be planted and they can be drained properly. This is a pilot project that we're working on for LinkedIn, where LinkedIn is actually looking at moving entire workstations outside, including all of the electronics, undercover but completely open. So if the weather is desirable, people can then really work outside, but not on a park bench or in a small chair. They can actually work in a traditional workstation with everybody else, just happens to be outside. So this is a pilot project that we're doing at the moment for LinkedIn. Other kinds of amenity spaces like this, outdoor conference rooms, completely open air, but have outdoor conference rooms. So get out of the office space, get out of that interior environment to where the air may be a little bit better on the exterior and allow people to work in a variety of different ways. Exiting balconies, that idea of sliding doors really allows the space to open up. So we need to make sure that, when we do provide these outdoor spaces, we have the exiting requirements intact. We are seeing also now multi-use kinds of spaces come into play, so that you may have inside an office space a multi-purpose kind of space that can be used for studio production spaces or town hall meetings. And so we're starting to see where spaces are more flexible and therefore can change with the company over time, but also allow you to have smaller areas, not rent as much space, and be a little bit more purposeful with how you use the space. Health and wellness in buildings, we will start to see a lot more of these kinds of amenities, not only fitness centers, but small medical centers and therapy kinds of places and things like that as an amenity to the office space, as a way to be a health and wellness benefit to the tenants that occupy that space. This is the interior of our headquarters in Los Angeles, and you can see the stairway and the movement through the building. Really, we don't want people to take the elevators, but we want people to move around the building and stay active and be in the open, not small and closed corridors, but completely open space. And then because of that, we're going for other kinds of certification beyond sustainability, but fit well certification, and the next one really well building certification, so that it's really not about the sustainability necessarily and how much energy we're saving, but how we're keeping people healthy, the level of fitness and nourishment, and dealing with the necessity of air and water, but really from a wellness perspective and not from a purely sustainable perspective. So thank you. Pleasure to be with you today.
Together we dream to build lives, to build smiles, to build a world. At HIL, together we build. Established in 1946, HIL is a proud company of CK Birla Group. We are the market leader in the building materials segment in India. with our super brands. Although we've been around for over 70 years, we are still young at heart.
With a 70 years old rich legacy, HIL has pioneered the building solutions in India. Under very steep corporate governance and value systems governed from the 150 years legacy of CK Birla Group.
We are on a journey to change the world. We are backed by a world-class in-house R&D and engineering facility. Our project engineering concepts make us the leading system integrator for special purpose machines all over the world. Thanks to our one-stop building material solutions. Charminar, roofing solution. Birla Aerocon, walling solutions. Plumbing solutions. Parador, flooring solutions.
What makes HIL special and a great brand are its committed people, its loyal stockists and customers, and above all, an array of products through its great brands that have made a difference in the marketplace.
We have played a small yet significant part in building the world. We truly abide by our motto of Together we build.
It was indeed an informative session, wasn't it? Let us move on to our panel discussion for the day. Adaptive Technology, Automation in Commercial Workspaces. It will be moderated by Akhil Ganatra, Clancy Global, and our panelists for this particular discussion are Ashish Rakheja, AEON Integrated, Ashwin Aryamane, Concept Consilio India, Pankaj Dharkar and Associates, and V. Vijaya Raghavan, Blue Star Limited. I would now like to hand over the session to Akhil Ganatra. Thank you.
So welcome everyone. We are here to talk about adaptive technology in corporate real estate. And we've got a panel which represents various aspects or various stakeholders within a project. So we've got Vijay Raghavan, who represents the supply side or the delivery of equipment or the installation of equipment. We've got Dharkar sir and Ashish, who need very little introduction in context because I'm originally an engineer, so they are celebrities in their own way. Probably Dharkar sir more than Ashish, if you don't mind me saying, but there you go. And then we've got Ashwin, who represents design, architecture, and actually, for that matter, very rare combination of actually building it out as well. It's not only about what you can draw on paper, but especially in today's day and age with adaptive technology, you have to be able to build out something that's adaptive. So we'll start the session with Vijay Raghavan. He'll briefly cover how equipment, air conditioning equipment has evolved over the ages. Just to set a foreground to it, remember that air conditioning contributes to 30% of the greenhouse gas emissions, which is effectively 50% of the greenhouse gas emissions that come out of energy. So over to you, Vijay Raghavan, please.
Yeah. Thank you, Akhil. It's interesting, the air conditioning is about, I think, a century old. And when we talk about air conditioning, basically we talk about 4 or 5 things, which needs a special attention. One is a compressor, and I will be touching upon how the compressor technology evolved. The second one is refrigerant, the blood in the circuit. The third one is a heat exchanger. The fourth one is a pumping system. The fifth one is sensors and controllers. Probably going forward, you will be hearing more about the sensors and controllers in it. And the new buzzword is, artificial intelligence of knowing what has happened and to know what will happen, predict and things like that. And the refrigerant from CFCs to HCFCs, Freon to Puron, and a refrigerant which will not deplete the ozone layer, have a limited emission factor, and it's always a wonderful game. You look for efficient refrigerant, then it has some toxicity in it, it has some flammability in it. You go for that, you lose this, and it is an interesting thing. So in this about a century-old air conditioning systems, on various parts, research have been done, and there are improvements. For example, the air conditionings between 1970s to now, we are talking about, in 30, 40 years, power consumption is reduced more than about 50% or so. And like Akhil rightly pointed out, this OPEX and CAPEX of air conditioning and the indoor air quality management contributes more than about 50% of energy uses. And yeah, the transportation is another thing which causes a major thing, but we will not be probably talking about it. And in India, probably this 2002 with BE introduction, people have taken very seriously the consumption of air conditioning, because they know that this has to be controlled because of carbon emission problems and things like that. Started with voluntary, and then it started mandatory, and now we have missions with energy efficiency ratio, a decent of 3.5, which is in a watts per watts scale. And what else, I would like to talk about, yeah, the controls. The controls, uh, we started with near temperature control thermostat, and over this 20 years, every 2 years, 3 years, we come up with a advancement in it, right from fuzzy logic to adaptive to artificial intelligence, so on and so forth. And the controllers are becoming more smarter. And so this is on standalone air conditioners for residential and for central plant usages for commercial buildings. Yes, with from reciprocating compressors, we migrated to screw centrifugals. Now we are talking about magnetic elevation with better power consumption thing, and not only on the compressors, which takes about 85%, 80-85% of electricity load. There are other components in the central air conditioning system, like pumps, cooling towers, and of course air handling units on the low side. Various technologies have come in with only objective to make it less power consuming, to make it less noisy, less vibration, and to have a better control and give a uniform, kind of a comfort to the occupants, is what it has evolved. And certain controls which probably the other panel members will talk about this. We had controls at every point wherever it can be controlled, right from variable air volume systems on the air side to the variable frequency drive for the AHU motor, and to the PABC valves, which gives a signal to the secondary pump, and then controlling the water flow rates, and then the air conditioning, the chiller capacity controls and the refrigerant flow. And this is a journey which we have undertaken. And why all this? Why all this? Because we are talking about a scenario where the air conditioning penetration in Indian market is close to about 5-6%, which is expected to reach about 12% penetration level in 2026, that is 5-6 years from now. While in the same period of about 2017-18, US, Japan, and Korea has a 90% penetration, with China at 60% penetration. So if we talk about climate control, global warming, and what all those buzzwords, this air conditioning, HVAC, has to be more efficient, has to have better controls, and it has to serve its purpose in a very friendly and environmental friendly way. And probably on this time, I have this much to say. I'll add one last thing. While constructing the building, we have many certifying body and many those LEED certifications and all. But Blue Star as such, we have adopted to this building information modeling system in 3D Revert, which constitutes planning, designing, building, and operating, so that one, it is done sequentially, and it is done transparently, and it is done more effectively. And number two, all those data points, which will also be a subject point of today's discussion, is being collated, is being analyzed, the trends are seen, and the deviations are noticed, and the controls logics comes in, so that you'll become much more smarter in handling this bigger energy guzzling system. And
Vijaya,
that's what I have to say. Thanks, Akhil.
I mean, secretly, you transitioned beautifully into what Dharkar sir is going to start talking about. Is because first you spoke about what is the evolutions of the hardware itself that's available. Now it moves to the software, where software is used to reduce the heat gain first, which is before the equipment comes in. How do you reduce the amount of air conditioning that is required? Also, mixed mode ventilation or natural ventilation exaggerated is something that is going to hit the ground with adaptive technologies significantly. So over to you, Dharkar sir. Please take us through energy modeling, which in itself is a big topic, and CFD analysis, which is computational fluid dynamics, which is just coming in terms of how airflows can be assessed. Over to you, Dharkar sir.
First, let me thank iDAC for inviting me to be part of this uh, interesting panel discussions. Thanks, Akhil, for um, be here as moderator, and of course, he's one of very dynamic co-consultant working in India, along with Ashish. We have been enjoying our company for many years, and what a pleasure to be here with eminent architect Ashwin Aryamane ji. So let me uh, also thank Vijay ji for covering such important topics. And I think me, Ashish, and Akhil all are looking forward for days when we are going to see air conditioner which consume energy levels of hair dryer. That is what we are dreaming. And the there are with focus on Make in India, which our Prime Minister has given, we could see some good. I was just watching the share prices of Blue Star and was delighted. So I think best wishes to you with the lot of work
Thank you.
going to happen in cold room side and also various Make in India missions. And we look forward as professionals in this country that our own people should come up with products so that we don't have to go to China for importing chillers and related equipments. Friends,
True.
I think a very important topic which Akhil gave to me, the way our designers are now working, and especially the youngster, I think the importance of CFD analysis is really increasing. And what is a good news is because of various green building certification programs, there is an increased awareness between the developers, the architects, about making sure that the MEP consultants start using these tools. Uh, of course, the CFD analysis can help us on wind analysis, stack effect, microclimatic analysis. Of course, we have been extensively using these tools for our basement ventilation and wherever metro projects are happening on tunnel ventilation. And of course, what is going to come post-COVID is a lot of engineers have started using this for airflow, right airflow designs, which can ensure that occupants' health and well-being is also ensured. So I will like to take you through a case study of Vadhva's Vice City, which is next to the Panvel. And we, uh, we have a typical situation here where we had a elevation difference of 180-meter tall hill. It was alongside of that. So it is a very tricky situation. And we all know the monsoon winds are blowing from southwest in Mumbai, while summer and winter is coming from northwest. So we really wanted to help architect and owners to have right orientation so that we have good natural ventilation within apartments. So the project has close to 23 towers of 24 floors in height. Um, so it's an interesting project. The clusters were made. We did do 2D models, 3D models were created, and they were put on various scales. And the wind velocity were tested at various velocities. We know that in Mumbai, the average velocity from west is 2.65, while in the monsoon, it extends it. So the analysis was done at various levels for the various clusters, because these A, B, C clusters were having various heights which were differing, and the hill was really coming as an obstruction. So you can see here, it was done at a pedestrian level. Then we went to, for the second cluster, we went to again on the terrestrial level, and you can see how the wind is blowing. And these dark blue patches are the patches where probably we were seeing the problems. So you can see here, again, they were done on the different levels. So we did at terrestrial level of A, B, C towers, which were different clusters. Then we went up onto the levels of mid floor, around 12 floors above the pedestrian level. And again, these exercises were done just to understand how the winds are blowing at different velocities. And then we started analyzing this as to how architects can probably reorient the buildings to ensure that each and every apartment gets a right wind velocity. So the clusters were analyzed in details, and the inputs were given to architects as to where we are finding problems. You can see here there are areas which were absolutely poorly ventilated because of the elevation difference. And all those aspects were debated with architects and owners. And in fact,
Dharkar sir covered really good points, which cascaded from what Vijay Raghavan covered in terms of how software or simulation can be used to make buildings more efficient at the design stage itself. Ashish will take us to the other end of it, which is the operations of an asset and how new technology, with as power over Ethernet being only a figurehead for it, and IBMS frameworks and backbones are changing. Over to you, Ashish.
Thank you so much, Akhil. And namaskar, everyone. Delighted to be part of this panel by iDAC. And thank you, Akhil, for moderating this panel. We have stalwarts on this panel right now, and right from Dharkar Saab to Vijay and to Ashwin ji, and of course you taking care of the moderation. Now the topic that you have picked up in terms of PoE, especially power over Ethernet, and looking into the automation systems going forward is very relevant. Now uh, I'll just go back few years. I started my career way back in early 90s, and at that point we were designing one of the largest building automation systems, which was for National Stock Exchange in Mumbai in those days. 10,000 IO points. Now, one could never even imagine such a system being done, even today for that matter. The challenge, and I really got sucked into this field. I liked this field so much because it made me sort of jack of all trades. Because if you have to automate something, you need to know the working of it. So you need to know plumbing, you need to know fire, you need to know air conditioning, and it gave that insight. Then came the horror story. The automation system never works. It's very good to say that you have a building automation system, intelligent buildings. Vijay is smiling, I can see that. And it comes from the fact the automation never works. And to an extent that even in our own office, my own earlier office, I used to work for Spectral, we could never get the automation system to work. The problem was not the design part. Design was excellent. Problem was installation. Problem was operations. Installations done by the technicians who are not trained, who are electricians actually, don't know how to take care of the low voltage systems, and operated by people who have no clue about the electromechanical system design or operation, and they are trying to do the things. Now, from those days, then we saw that building automation system took a dip actually. It sort of went into a cold store from the building design, and then it came back again. And it came back for a very simple reason that there is X amount that you can do in design. You can bring the project to a super efficient level. You can have best of the products available. Vijay can supply that we can talk about VFD, we can talk about valves, we can do everything. Correct. But at the end, you can install it. Okay, we have a problem in installation, but let's say you install it. Akhil has got a great PMC company. He makes sure the things are installed well. But he's not there for operation. I'm not there for operation. Who's going to operate it? The problem started coming. If the operations are not done successfully, then you're back to square one. Now let's quickly roll to the current time. We are talking of high performance buildings. We are talking of net zero energy buildings. We are talking of buildings which are futuristic. How do you get these buildings to work? Again, a simple definition of a net zero energy building is a building which is very efficient and make sure that its power is being offset by the renewable sources. And renewable sources are expensive. You'll only put what is bare minimum required to make it a net zero or a maximum renewable energy use being done. You've designed it well, everything is okay, but if it is not operated well, again, it doesn't remain a net zero energy building. So you're back to square one. And that's where the role of the automation system started coming into the picture. If you look at the ASHRAE standard 90.1, which is the foundation for the energy efficiency implementation across the globe, most of the countries follow that, including India through ECDC. There's a lot of focus on what we say the design is fine, there is a prescriptive route, then it gets down to the point of achieving the number, what we call EPI, Energy Performance Index, is what you need to achieve. Moment we go in that direction, we are back to square one because again, the automation is there. So this is where the automation has been evolving. And it is now taking the route, it is going to take a route of what you spoke about, the PoE, Power over Ethernet, where everything becomes addressable. We tried that in the fire alarm industry. We saw the advantage of the PoE.
Yeah.
Moved into the lighting industry, which is the next phase of implementation. And we are seeing it being in these are initial days where the costs are high. We have also seen wireless technology moving into the automation industry today. So wireless, PoE, their integration into the operation, AI, automatic, the artificial intelligence, all of them are now going to get together to get us to a point of intelligent operation of the buildings going forward. So that's where the route is going to happen, Akhil. Over to you, Akhil.
Correctly said. Yeah, he correctly said. Probably all the designs and all the engineers are designing are getting more human centric, easy to use. Because we are doing one project right now in Pune where the client has asked that he doesn't want any switches. Everything needs to be handled by iPhone or on the comfy. That's it.
Yeah, Ashwin, you're right. And I'll just add to that, Akhil, just to put a little bit of color to it. The whole system operations in going forward is not going to be the way we are designing or operating currently. You know, it's all going to get performance based.
Yeah, correct.
I was talking to somebody internationally, one of my colleagues there, they said that the designers have now started coming and saying, we commit to you at the start of the project, mind it. You and I get together and we come into the start of the project and say, I promise you that your building will not have an EPI of more than 100 kilowatt hour per square meter per year.
Yeah.
You're bound by that number and you cannot do it through only design. So it's design and operation and installation also into it. So
I mean,
the things are going to turn the performance-based systems, and automation is where it's going to be the key.
I mean, somewhere let's sort of at an adaptive level, finally, it's going to come down to how the asset is operated. In fact, a lot of people, and Ashwin will second it, is coming down to, like you said, performance based. You've designed it for one thing. But anyways, sort of, you know, we moved from equipment to design to how it operates. Now, if I may use the word, we move to the orgasm of it all. Corporate real estate is going to change in terms of the way spaces are planned. And Ashwin is at the forefront of how spaces will become more agile. And hence all the things that we spoke about will have to adapt to that first, even at a design level and then at an operations level. So over to you, Ashwin.
Yeah. So thanks, iDAC, and thanks everybody for inviting us for this wonderful session. See, corporate real estate has really come a long way, right from those old days of having a large workstations with a large partitions to nowadays a very open workspace. So this is really related to evolving technology. The technology is playing a major important role, as well as the optimization of real estate. I will really say that no one size fits all. So it really depends upon a company to company, and where the workplace design or workplace strategy planning is very, very important. where you really map how a company, how a organization really works, and adopt to their needs and requirement, because it will change drastically from the pharma company to IT company to say accounting company. So it will really change. So agile workplace really came into picture for optimization of a space. So I will give you a couple of example of some of the banking industry, what we are right now doing in across the country, where they have really engaged 30% more people, because when we did the workplace strategy study, what has been observed that around 30% people, either they are on holiday or they are in the meeting rooms. So how we can optimize the entire use of a space? So we have provided around 30% more lockers where the people are more, but the actual spaces are less to sit. So at any given point of time, 30% spaces, 30% people, more people work. So if you get around 1,300 people in the 1,000-seater office, it perfectly works. And now the people want the choices to work. So it is no longer that it is my desk. So you come in the morning, you log in, you can sit wherever you want. And of course, technology is kind of backing it, and which really makes the space a completely agile. And mostly all these spaces needs to be really task oriented. So either you have a focus booth or you have a collaborative zone. Basically you get the spaces where depending upon that day's task, you can go and take that space on a booking system basis. So nowadays, all these companies are adopting a technology. Go in the morning, book the seat, go there, sit. If you're not there in 5 minutes, the seat will be released.
Yeah.
So you cannot go and book the seat for the whole day and just don't go there. And in fact, what we have observed in this pandemic situation, really interesting spaces are coming, which is more like a racy commercial space. So
Yeah.
people want to feel like a residential space. So a lot of residential hospitality design are kind of cropping in the office space. So it no longer, of course, cabin culture has gone 5 years back. So there is no cabins. So you have to go just sit anywhere and work from anywhere. And that's how the technology is really changing and making it much more faster in having these agile adaptive spaces. So this is it. This is what I want to put to the table. So anybody wants to know more on this, then please ask any questions.
I mean, in terms of Ashwin, sorry, from Ashish, both Dharkar sir's perspective, this is something that services engineers and architects have a constant clash of what heights we'll get. But what is your view on underfloor wiring? Forget air conditioning at a second. In terms of increasing flexibility of space through its asset life.
So 90% of the spaces what we are designing mostly on the false floor. And in fact, all the wiring happens from the false floor only. So I was wondering, in that 6-inch false floor, can some AC consultant design a duct which can go from the floor so that we can get a clear height much more?
I mean,
Why not? Why even have a duct? We'll give you radiant.
yeah,
The entire slab can be radiant, correct?
Right, correct. So your floor, your ceiling, everything will become radiant. You want walls also converted, we can do that. Only
Yeah,
thing is
that is.
get us money from the client. That's the only challenge we have.
I mean,
But
That's true.
another note, I think what he brought out very rightly, and Akhil, what you took up was on the clashes. Now, what we spoke about the POE is another level where you'll actually be, if the lighting is what it is today, and very soon the way we are going, your power on everything, your power points and everything, you're already charging your mobiles on the wireless today.
yeah.
So if this is the direction we are going, wireless, POE, the clashes are gone on the electrical side. Then we'll
Yeah,
only worry
and
about fire
mostly.
pipes, maybe that's all we'll be worrying about in future.
And mostly what we are observing in some of our clients, that they are asking us to design a space so flexible that any given point of time they can change everything.
Yeah.
So that services needs to be kind of universal services. If I want to take out anything, put it somewhere else, it should be probably like a mechanos plate, so that everything is flexible, nothing is fixed. And that's what is happening right now. So people, what we are observing right now, that people are kind of reducing their spaces. They are increasing their spaces where this flexibility really comes into effect. So where real agile space or really comes into picture, not agile in terms of only planning, but in terms of with the HVAC electrical systems also, which is very important.
I mean,
So
so, you know,
nothing is fixed.
so, you know, in terms of taking from there, so we started with equipment, we moved to design, then to building management systems, and then to planning, which is the core really of what corporate real estate is going to say. Also, through these conversations, we heard a lot of buzzwords, make in India, and secretly our government has given us great buzzwords to go by. One more buzzword they've given us is smart cities or smart infrastructure. And most of adoptive technology somewhere comes down to what is smart and how can you make things smart inside out. So whether versus a city coming into an asset going into a city in some sense. So I'll cover a little bit on that. I'll share my screen once. So I've just got a few slides that we can sort of go through to keep an eye. You all can see my screen. So,
Yes.
you know, the first principle that smart infrastructure is not all about Internet of Things. It's about physicality of spaces and how people are using spaces. You know, Ashwin spoke about that, is that the use profile of corporate real estate is changing significantly. Why do we talk about smart? And again, within the IBMS, we've covered, you know, so Vijaya covered a little bit on how input points are coming. This is the real stat. The devices connected to the internet are already 5 times of people in the world, and this is only going to grow. That's why smart is becoming so big. Now, this is what again, you know, Ashwin mentioned, that now it's no longer about operating an asset efficiently. It's also about bringing a quality of life to the people that are within the asset. And how do you get data points to map that they're having a good time? So smart is about getting data points for actionable intelligence versus getting data points for the fun of it. Pretty much similar like intelligent building management systems are. With innovation, we talk about it all the time, and you know, sort of integration of multiple systems is also an innovation. So sort of we've divided innovation into two things: functional innovation and advanced innovation. So your functional innovation is just about cascading the right things together to give a overall benefit. Advanced innovation is about beta testing things, testing them out, see how they work, and then see how you can expand it. Occupant centricity, again, something that all of us have been talking about, that how does the occupant's experiences enriched? So this is sort of a cycle for smart infrastructure. And a lot of people, all of us spoke about how an asset has to be mapped through its operations. It's not only what you do at design. So once you start mapping the operations, you're going to get some things that reach their climax and become an SOP. Some things will have a falling action and you'll reiterate that data point to see how you can improve the asset. This is something sort of that we covered in terms of, you know, how privacy versus what can CCTV analytics do. And secretly, again, Ashwin and all of us as engineering design consultants as well really come in, because we've designed a system for the defined use, for the circulation, congregation, event, neighborhood, and remote. What is the asset flow and density? What was the demographic of people that used it? Were they happy or not? Can be done without face recognition. Whereas face recognition can come into more sort of operational roles like facility management, security, and service staff. So in terms of smart, and this is what again Ashwin covered, that you know how hospitality design is starting to come in. Smart is subjective and objective. So yes, there is the Internet of Things and connecting things to make things more efficient, but there is the breeding of human culture, public art, social interaction. So this is just sort of a sample slide for that. Dynamic use of spaces, and again something Ashwin covered, that secretly spaces are becoming such that people want to be able to change it in any fashion that they want. They have to be able to convert a place. So flexibility is the key for adaptive technology. And a lot of it comes through programming the asset. So what was the program defined for the asset? How can these plugs work modularly within the asset for at least 40% of the asset to change dynamically? Again, a little bit of slides on asset programming. So asset programming is a big thing when you talk about smart infrastructure, any of these things we're talking about, because even design is responsive to asset programming in that sense. health as well. So just 2 more slides and this will be done. But health of well-being of people who are occupying the asset. So while these are not literal things that you can do, but these are softer points where, there are initiatives that the asset takes to be able to make the people more conscious of their health in some sense. Satellite functions, multi-use of spaces, walls being foldable, nets coming in, installations coming in, 3D mapping. So dynamic spaces is really the flavor of the game. And again, once you've got an asset that's programmed, as engineers sitting on this table as well, or in this panel, can actually do something to change it. Finally, this is the last slide of how a smart is from an asset to a city. If a single asset can start influencing that 2-kilometer neighborhood, eventually individual assets will have overriding circumferences and the city will become smart bottom up versus the city becoming smart top down. That's all from me. We've got, sort of all our panelists cover. We're going to open the floor for 5 minutes or maybe 7 minutes, if you may, and sort of ask each other things that we'd like to know more about or what we think the audience would sort of gain significantly from. So the floor is back over to the panel, and we've got Dharkar sir, who's got his fair share to even say. So starting with you, Dharkar sir, if you may.
No, well, I think first of all, I was wanting to speak to my friend architect that he spoke about underfloor. If you can give us 450 I think Ashish, me, or Akhil can design a beautiful flexible space which will have a very efficient air conditioning system. Underfloor has been only gone to data centers and not gone to commercial spaces. Had it should have gone, but I can assure you, sir, that it can give best of the flexibility
Yeah,
to
yeah, correct.
spaces.
I
And
mean, if I can extend that as well, secretly giving air conditioning at the source of where it's required. Actually, aeroplanes taught us the best, right? You still remember those small nozzles that you adjust to give air just to
correct,
yourself.
you're right.
So,
And in most
effective.
of the spaces, you can cover the livable space, which could be just 6 feet. And underfloor can do that very beautifully. And it can also mean huge energy saving. Uh, One can look at if the buildings are planned in advance with underfloor, you can
Correct.
probably construct one more floor in, say, for 12th floor
Correct.
building. This is possible.
Correct.
So, well, I think going back on the CFD analysis, energy, I think what my take is that we should start interacting with architect at design stages. And as Ashish also said, that a time is going to come where professionals are going to be challenged for ultimate performance of their designs and buildings. I think these tools can really help us in a big way. And I'm sure the uh, suppliers like Blue Star, Vijay Raghavanji, you are hearing this, and you have to compliment uh, and ensure that these design values, which earlier probably would have been debated, we have no place for that. That is going to happen. The owners are going to be more and more vigilant about it, and I think IBMS and integrated systems are going to play a big role in this.
Dharkar sir, if I may, I mean, here Blue Star is there and all of us are here as well. So you can take a little under the belt chance. But, some Blue Star should really start sponsoring energy modeling and CFD analysis. Like when we bought ductless ventilation fans, we didn't have to pay or ask for CFD analysis. It was cost of acquisition. Like you made BIM your cost of acquisition. Energy modeling and CFD should start becoming your cost of acquisition. Sorry for the under the belt though. But there you go. So, Ashwin, in terms of, we've got a couple of minutes more, and really
Sure.
sort of, we feel that digging your head, even again with all the people on the platform, you're actually the originator of what we start designing for.
Correct.
So, in terms of, sort of I know this is it's not the subject for today's conversation, but in terms of corporate real estate, in terms of its demand and how COVID had affected it, what are you seeing now? Is corporate real estate catching back on? Are you sort of filtering more inquiries?
Not really. It is going to really, next 6 months are going to be extremely bad. So
Okay.
something will start looking at it probably post next Diwali. Though the big boys have not stopped. Of course, there are big boys are not stopped. Google, Amazon, these people are going full blast. But yes, a lot of small players have stopped.
Yeah.
And there is at least 25 to 30% dip in the real estate requirement itself. Right now, we are designing a large facility for BP, British Petroleum, where they are already, out of 4 floors, they are already dropped 1 floor, stating that 2 days a week, people will work from home.
Yeah.
So that is 25% less space. And in fact, I was really pleasantly surprised. Just before this pandemic, we completed 2 campuses for a company known as Pfizer in Bangalore and Chennai. And right now they are working on 97% of, efficiently in this lockdown. So they are questioning why we need the office. And that's a scary answer. So scary question. So.
I mean, this is what, to conclude today's panel discussion, this is what it's going to come down to. When you talk about adaptive real estate, Resi is going to come into the corporate real estate, hospitality is going to come into corporate real estate, modularity, flexibility, reduction of load. So there is, through the building life cycle, if I may say, there are sufficient adaptive technologies that can sort of operate at the merit of the asset. And that's what all of us have covered as well. There's no cookie cutter model. What you've done for one asset cannot be copy pasted to another asset.
No. But in fact, I have a different take on this. We are designing one large campus. I don't want to name the client here, around 4 million square feet, where the design happens last, but the engineering happens first.
Yeah.
So it is 100% universal design. So client has said, boss, I can place anything anywhere, but my office should work or my spaces should work.
Yeah.
So the design will come afterwards. Only the engineering will come first.
So closing today's note, engineers are going to become more important, thankfully. It took us a while to become a little important, but thankfully we are back into the action.
Akhil, I'll just have a word. Okay, this subject probably has tuned us to this level. Look at this. ACE consultant is talking about how you can step in much before the architect comes up with a kind of a plan, orientation and all. And consultant like, Ashish coming up and saying that, it is not a design I will stop with. I need to look for a correct implementation of it. Moreover, the asset has to be operated rightly for us to reap the benefit. I think we become adaptive among ourselves, all the stakeholders in delivering the project. I would like to see this kind of attitude grows much higher in the market, so that together we really we make a difference to the space what we are operating with. I just thought I would add this.
Akhil,
so nowadays,
what Vijay said, I think that's very, what we are seeing. We saw a design-based approach for many years is now moved on to a contracting approach, where the contractor is leading the field. But at the end of the day, the client is still not getting what he wants. There are shortfalls in all of them. The client will get it once we come down to what we call a performance-based approach, where everyone has to get together with an equal stake, the neck is in the game for all of them equally. Getting down to the flexible real estate, because the demands are constantly changing, requirements are changing. So it's a performance-based flexible designs is what the systems are going to evolve to. And it will happen in our lifetime only. We are not far away from that. The journey has begun. So that's where I see that going.
Ashish, I will like to only add there, and it will have to be an integrated approach between you, me, and architects like Ashwin to take it.
It is more like a co-designing.
Even you have to get the Cushmans and the Colliers and all of them together.
Oh, you're going to come together. One Colliers are different world altogether.
Wait and watch. That's where the things will go, and market is already looking at that.
Yeah, I mean, fingers crossed. It was a great session. Thank you all for your input. Ashwin wanted to say something. So Ashwin,
No, it is more, yeah, it is more like a co-designing. So everybody should be on the same platform. So that's more important.
So closing this session with that, this is my COVID pranam, to be honest, because you just have to keep everything crossed, right? No matter how much you plan, something's going to you. So have a great day, everyone, and I'll
Thank
probably
you.
see you on
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you very
Thank you,
much.
everyone. Bye-bye. Thank
Have
you.
a nice day. Bye.
Have a nice day. Bye-bye. Thank you.
That was indeed a superbly moderated session with a lot of insights from all our panelists. Let us move on to our last and final panel discussion for the day, Future of Commercial Real Estate in India. This session is going to be moderated by Chandani from CBRE India, and our panelists for this particular discussion are Ritesh Sachdeva, Tata Realty and Infrastructure, Shreesh Thergaonkar, Reliance Industries, Shailendra Veer, HIL Limited, and Thirumal Govindraj from RMZ Corp. I would now like to hand over the session to our moderator, Chandani.
Good evening, everyone. Wishing everyone a very, very happy new year. Look forward to a very positive 2021. Glad to be part of the iDAC Corporate Real Estate E-Summit. The commercial real estate sector in India has seen large strides over the last decade. Robust occupier interest, acceleration in the organized real estate, developer community, the emergence of institutional capital, and has seen accelerated growth. While the COVID 2019 has really seen an impact on the overall commercial real estate sector in India, I really believe that India is in the trajectory for recovery in 21. The commercial sector has witnessed strong interest from corporate occupiers, from the technology sector, the banking sector, the financial services sector, research consulting, and obviously the flexibility of providing space to create sustainable solutions in this sector. While the industry has seen a slowdown in 2020, we really look forward to a positive future in 21. Today's session, The Future of Commercial Real Estate, has been curated to deliberate the road ahead for our sector. In our discussion today, we have a great esteemed panelist. I would like to introduce our panelists. I would start with the introduction with Thirumal Govindraj, who's the Managing Director at RMZ. Thiru, a quick introduction from yourself.
Yeah, hi. Good evening, everybody, and Happy New Year to all of you all. And thanks, Ram. So basically, I'm the Managing Director and Executive Board Member of RMZ Corp. I manage the complete revenue and the asset management piece for RMZ Corp.
Thanks, Thiru. Ritesh Sachdeva from Trill.
Ram, thank you. And as Thiru said, here's wishing everyone a healthy and a happy 2021, need of the hour. My name is Ritesh. I run the corporate leasing, the commercial leasing and the asset management business for Tata Realty in India. Been in the real estate business for 2 decades, worked both with service providers and occupiers. So delighted to be a part of the panel, Ram, that you're moderating. Back to you. Thank you.
Thanks, Ritesh. Shreesh.
Hi, good evening and Happy New Year to everybody. I'm Shreesh Thergaonkar, architect for last 32 years in active practice, having exposure worldwide and doing a lot of industrial, commercial, high-end residential, hospitality and healthcare projects. Currently, I am with Reliance Industries, working as a lead and architect for Reliance Industries. Currently, we are doing the Geo World Center project in BKC. So very honored to be in this esteemed panel, and thanks to iDAC for a nice, very informative talk today. I hope we all will contribute as a team in betterment of our profession.
Thanks, Shreesh.
Thank you.
Last but not the least, Shailendran Veer.
Thank you, Ram. My name is Shailendra Ravi. I'm working for HIL's Building Solutions vertical, and I wish a very, very happy new decade to all of you.
Thank you. Great. Let's kick off. I would like to start with a couple of questions, and I can pose the questions to the developer community, and then come to you, Shailendra and Suresh. So from a developer's perspective, Thiru, I'll start with you. As a developer, what strategies are you really adopting in the changing scenario post-COVID? Obviously, you've seen occupier demand changes happening, the emergence of flexibility in requirements, in decision-making being pushed out. What are you seeing from your perspective, and what is RMZ really adopting, and what would your advice be for the industry?
Ram, we've been in the business for the last 20 odd years, tracking the commercial real estate market. So from a developer standpoint, we've always been at the forefront of, bringing in cutting edge technology to our commercial real estate. Yeah, you can actually see the products we have brought out in the market, and that is, the product also matches the clientele we have. So I think the post pandemic, obviously there have been a lot of changes in terms of how we look at design, how do we look at sustainability, how do we look at ESG, and how do we look at overall, overall employee health and safety whenever clients decide to come back. So we had actually, as soon as the pandemic hit us, we actually went out, we researched, we tried to see what best we can adapt. See, because technology changes so fast, we didn't want to adapt technology just for the sake of adapting technology. So we've done, a lot of research during the pandemic to understand. Obviously, we've done the usual, touchless elevators. We've done, tried to increase air quality and retrofitted a lot of our older buildings to try and bring in at least some semblance in terms of a sense of safety for clients who are coming back to work at some level. For the new buildings, so, we've got almost 34 million square feet of assets under construction across the country. And so we've all actually gone back to the drawing board with our consultants and asked them to tell us what best we could do to increase air quality, how to bring in more wellness and more sustainable development in terms of, not only on the core and shell, but also from a pure interior and a customer interface kind of a scenario. So there's a lot of work going on in the background. We're working with, a couple of consultants across the globe. We also were the first developer during the lockdown to actually been awarded a well certification in the Delos Clinic in the US. And the whole portfolio was given the well certification for us. We anyway were a gold LEED certified developer. We've now moved to platinum for all our new buildings. And we also have a LEED certification for all our assets. So we're making a lot of efforts to ensure that the clients and the corporates coming back are comfortable and are able to bring in they bring in their members back to their offices and in a safe way. So obviously, to answer your question, I think it's going to be a mix of traditional brick and mortar and a lot of technology and real tech coming into the picture for us to build the future of space. That's what our tagline is anyway, RMZ, the future of space. And I think that's something we've demonstrated over the last decade. And I think that demonstration is going to, you can see the difference which is going to come in with the new assets we're building.
Great, Thiru. Thank you for that. Ritesh, coming over to you, obviously the Tata brand name does carry a lot of weight. You've successfully built quite a few parks across India. What are your plans going forward, keeping the post-pandemic era? You're on mute, Ritesh.
Sorry, thank you. I realized that I was mute. As I'd like to take a step back and just start with this meme, which is now famous, saying what drove digitalization. Was it the CFO? Was it the CIO? What are the people, the employees, etc., costs, and so on and so forth? Nothing but COVID drove digitalization. And we've seen that all the way through. As Thiru said, you've been representing occupiers now for more than 2 decades, and the whole supply-demand mismatch that was there in the market, none of that but COVID-19 ensured that digitalization, health and well-being, amongst all of the other things, get paramount importance within existing developments and new. You use the word Tata brand, of course, synonymous amongst the most recognizable brands there is in our country. So of course there are expectations, aspirations, and so on and so forth. I'd like to pause there and step back and say, our portfolio, our commercial portfolio is relatively smaller or younger. We've got about closer to 6.4 million square feet across the country that is operational, but we've got mega growth plans. We're developing another 20 million square feet across the country, which we hopefully will take to about 40 odd million over the next 5 years plus. That's the plan overall. Thiru mentioned, I think most developers today, and what we did is we started with the whole journey, the whole touchless journey, and because a lot of our parks were under development, a lot of our parks our portfolio is relatively newer. I think we could start off by starting off from the drawing board and in a way drawing up the entire journey that a guest or a visitor or an employee may have from the time that he enters the park all the way to his offices. And as Thiru said, the semblance that we've got to bring back on the fact that workplaces, offices are safe, if not safer, everything around that. We're also looking at, of course, platinum certification, gold certification for all our parks. RMZ was amongst the first, but we are committed to be getting health and safety rating for all of our newer portfolio, all of our existing and new portfolio. We're looking at going and getting the entire WELL certification for all of our portfolio. Of course, air quality amongst the other things is of paramount importance. So we're continually looking at the ISHRE, ASHRE standards and so on and so forth. A lot of other third-party certifications, etc., are available in the market. If I were to summarize the whole thing, of the many things that we've realized, Ram, and again, this goes back to the best-in-class park that we've got in Chennai, the Ramanujan and AEON park. We've realized that during these times, if not more, the quality of your assets perhaps speak most, and occupiers are able to appreciate that. We've picked up a lot of best-in-class cues from Ramanujan and AEON park that we've got in Chennai, where at this time, we've been able to perhaps maintain 100% occupancy during these times. So health and well-being, quality, as I was saying, a lot of best-in-class things that we're picking up, design elements that we're picking up. We're putting a lot of emphasis on pedestrian-only, vehicle-free, 2.5 to 4 acre podiums that we're now deploying. We're in our park that we're doing in Gurugram, the 3.5 million, we're planting in excess of 100,000 trees. So renewed focus than ever on health and well-being, and we're committed to that journey. Now, back to you.
Thanks, Ritesh. Shreesh, coming to you. I mean, obviously, Reliance, you represent Reliance, and what a brand and what great investments in the last few months from Reliance to India. Obviously, you've built a world-class facility in Mumbai, BKC, with the combination of office, retail, fully integrated development, truly world-class. From your perspective as an architect, what lessons, and obviously you've heard Thiru as a developer, Ritesh representing Tata's as a developer, RMZ, and who are talking of building millions and millions of square feet going forward. As a lead architect, what would be your advice, not only as lessons learned from COVID, and obviously we need to keep COVID in mind and going forward. When you look at large parks with a lot of infrastructure. We're all talking of sustainability. We're talking of green in all shapes and forms. We're talking of social distancing, air quality, wealth certification. As an architect, what would your advice be for the industry? It'd be great to hear your thoughts.
Yes, so this pandemic or the current prevailing global situation has demanded a rethink of design, so to say. Like, we had conventional planning earlier. When I mean conventional, that means for a commercial design, you have a lobby, a common space, people have a chauffeur driven car or a car drop off, and then go into a lobby, then go via elevators or escalators to their respective destinations. So this has changed dramatically. And when I say dramatically, I really mean by that. I say the demand of social distancing, the demand of touch-free accessibility, the demand for creating vestibules for social distance from a social distancing point of view, as well as from a safety point of view, where a consumer or a occupier comes, scans himself, there are automatic door closures and all these sanitizers and scanning for whether people are wearing masks and all. So these all require certain space. When I say space, the normal circulation space changes drastically. Again, so to say, you require a lot of IT involvement, lot of MEP involvement, lot of spatial development has changed drastically. So the space requirement, number one point I take is the space requirement has increased dramatically. The infrastructure facility, the BMS, the air conditioning, the electrical designs have changed dramatically. Secondly, for the most important part is how to achieve a queueless, or I would say a weightless, weight means W-A-I-T, not weight. Weightless accessibility and a customer experience a property gives to a customer. When we want to achieve this, we definitely want to have very efficient working of systems. Nowadays, a lot of companies, I will not name them, a lot of companies have come out with automatic scanners where whether a person is wearing a mask, whether a person has used the sanitizer, whether they are having PPE, if in case of healthcare or some special F&B areas they require. So all these things need to be dramatically changed from a design point of view. As far as the spaces are concerned, I must tell you that a lot of rethinking is happening now, a lot of reworking of design aspects, design criteria, design basis have been thought of, and they will definitely be used in future design in architecture with respect to commercial part. Of course, healthcare is a different ball game, so it is mandatory. The most important factor, which I always profess in my design nowadays, post this experience, very sad experience we had, is that how to dispose office waste. You know, lot of people use tissue papers. A lot of people use disposable bottles or paper glasses, disposable glasses, while drinking coffee or water. They just throw in a dustbin. So now we as architects have to create special enclosures to dispose this. And for me, as a concerned citizen or a professional, I will consider this as a biomedical waste, so to say, not in real sense, but yes, like I have had a contact with my saliva or hand, hand or whatever, and if I dispose in a common dustbin, it is definitely going to attract some concern or some doubt in mind of a colleague or a person. So these things have changed. The disposable methods will change, which are already in various LEED and IGBC norms, but they will have to be strictly incorporated, implemented, and designed. It's a very large subject to talk about, but one more thing I would like to say: central air conditioning has to be completely revamped. Change of air filters, change of various equipment, change of even the insulation of condensate pipes or chill water pipes have to be periodically changed, serviced on a regular and in a very stringent manner. These will be the norms going forward, and I hope that we all together have a informed decision to take and implement these. Of course, they will change the space requirements. The profitability of a developer or a promoter will definitely be affected, but considering the long-term benefits, what it will reap, we have to implement that.
Thanks for sharing that. Shailendra, coming to you, what do you think is the most critical challenge uh, in the process, and what do you think will be the major change from an overall industry from a future of work perspective? I mean, you've heard what developers are talking through, and Ritesh, you've heard Shree from an architect's perspective. What's your take?
Uh, Good evening, everyone. I totally agree with what Shirish's insight was, that reimagining the whole thing. I, as a manufacturer or a service provider to my customer, I not only have to think about COVID. COVID has just happened, something which has happened in last 100 years or 50 years. We were ready for nuclear warfare, but something of this nature will hit us and hit us so hard that everything would be standstill is something an eye opener for each one of us. So we have to think that what else is waiting for us ahead. Uh, Natural disasters we have experienced a lot. Tsunami was the worst. Economic recessions we have overcome. They were temporary, maybe 1 year or 2 year, and they have not given that serious a lesson which COVID has given. But what is beyond COVID? Is there some cyber disaster waiting for us? Are we prepared for that? Or maybe any biological disaster which can happen to us. So are we prepared as a real estate industry? Are we prepared for that? And me as a manufacturer, when this COVID has happened mid of March, there was a lockdown for 15 days. Everybody knew for sure that it is going to extend for another 15 or a month or so. So in 15 to 20 days time, we as manufacturers at HIL have started our planning, the day zero planning. When thing will open up, are we prepared to handle those type of challenges? Laborers have migrated back to their native places. Reverse migration has happened. How we are going to deal with it? Suppose we call all the laborers back to our factory. Will our customers at real estate to whom we supply on service, will they be having the laborers with them? So those type of questions were there. So we have to redesign the whole thing as a manufacturer, and we have to make ourselves prepared for any type of changes which commercial real estate industry is going to have. For example, we have so many hospitals, 2000 beds, 2500 bedded hospitals, huge, lavish. But are we ready to offer 10-bed hospitals to each and every mall, or maybe 10-bed hospital to each and every society? Can we have swimming pools, we have clubhouses, but this learning, can we convert them to some virtual health centers? So those type of things we have to think, and we have to be prepared. So I, as a manufacturer, are making a plan that what real estate a builder or an architect is going to think, and I, once he thinks and executes his project, I should be ready to service their requirements. So this is the challenge which I see, that the guy, the company, the organization who thinks ahead and thinks of many more things which are going to hit us hard, We have to be prepared for that. This is the future, what I see as a manufacturer. Over to you, Ram.
Thanks. Thanks, Shailendra. Interesting perspective from you as well as Shri, uh, as an architect, and how you really look at sustainability and how designs could impact the future. Coming back to the developers, Thiru and Ritesh, obviously, you've heard of investments, you heard of additional things that you got to incorporate in terms of design going forward, the way you utilize space, and obviously clients look at efficiency. But the critical part is the money to develop, right? Thiru, as RMZ, you've sold a large portfolio to Brookfield. You're building many more million square feet. You're talking of 40 plus million square feet. Ritesh, you spoke about 40 plus million square feet in the future. And obviously, money is important, and funding is important to continue the development story from an India perspective. What would you think are additional investment avenues for the RE sector? You've seen two successful REITs in India, and at some point of time, both RMZ and Tatas are thinking of REITs, etc. What would you think are the challenges from an overall funding perspective, and what do you think to sustain the development growth for your organizations and from an India perspective? Would you share your views, Thirumal? Start with you and then go to Ritesh.
So Ram, capital for real estate players has always been, has always been something which has been very cyclical. And, the banks have been aggressive and have also, been as critical as possible. So, I think from a capital standpoint, the real estate industry from a pure funding standpoint can't be, you have to make the differentiator between the residential business and the commercial business. I think they're two very, very different businesses, and both of them have very, very different capital requirements. Okay, so I think I'll speak from a commercial standpoint, but that's because that's what we do. So capital was quite easily accessible in 2019. It was a great year. I think it was the best year India's ever had. 65 million square feet of absorption. Bangalore leading the pack with 16 million square feet. So, everybody was, euphoric about the kind of growth the real estate sector was having, and in the commercial real estate. So, and a lot of us were growing at the pace we were because of the demand. We were trying to keep up with the demand across various micro markets in different cities. So I think so capital, not only institutional capital, banking capital as well as foreign capital was easily available. If you had a great asset base, you had a great quality product, and you had you had proper governance. I don't think capital has been a challenge and is a challenge. I think capital is still available. But I think from a business standpoint, I don't think developers would continue to build and keep their LTV so high. I think debt to equity ratios have been very skewed towards debt, because when you're growing at that pace with limited equity, your debt obviously balloons up. So I think the pandemic has at one point, will actually rationalize the debt equity ratios for developments. I think it'll be more strategic. It will be balanced in terms of how equity and debt goes in. I would say it will come to numbers. It will be around 70-30 to 60-40 is what I would see it. And I think a lot of the developers who are homegrown are going to be very, very strategic in terms of what kind of investors to bring in. It's going to be it. I think it's going to be the large international players who have the capital and who also bring in a lot of good quality governance and bring in a lot of international exposure to markets like ours. I think that capital is always going to be available for the grade A developers in the market. And I don't think it's not as difficult as people are making out to be, that capital is scarce. Yes, obviously, banks today have to be more pragmatic in the way that, because, you have a very broad spectrum in the developer community as such. So I think strength of delivery, strength of leasing, and strength of repayment is what banks are going to look at most stringently. And I think the best way to work would be to have strategic partners at project levels, at entity level, and bring in equity and, build a larger portfolio. We had 20 million constructed, we've exited 18% of our portfolio, and we got another 37 which is already under construction, and we got another 20 under acquisition. So we got a large portfolio for the next 5 years. So I think from a funding perspective, I think we are very, very clear in terms of how we're going to go about it. Obviously, you need construction debt, which is something which is available for people who have the right, DNA and the right mix of a professional organization. It's easily available.
Great. Ritesh, your take on this?
Let me try and summarize that. Thiru, of course, expanded in great detail. I'd perhaps just use 2 or 3 words. I'd say pretty much there has been a reset button that has been hit. When I say this from a Tata Realty's perspective, we've made statements and we were very clear that we'd like to change our 60-40 or 70-30 residential versus commercial current portfolio to perhaps a 60-40 commercial to residential. That's how bullish we were, and we continue to be on the commercial real estate sector. Thiru mentioned, Ram, you're aware of this, and all of my esteemed panel are, with regards to, and again, as Thiru mentioned, availability of capital was never the issue. It was the fundamentals, and I believe how that capital at a project level, a developer level, was mismanaged, is where we had this queue and a larger number of existing but not sold, existing part fully completed, or residential assets, etc. The number of homes that were available across the country. So clearly there was, all of that has been reset, and I agree with Thiru. Overall, I think the quality, before I say that, I'd say, when I say there has been a reset, of course, the government's playing its part. Ram, the number of registered developers, perhaps they were there at the beginning of 2019 to the number of registered developers there are today are perpetually, are almost about half. So the also rans, in a way, are out of business. The institutionally run, solid fundamentals, and as Thiru mentioned, quality of the asset defines. I don't think if capital is a problem, there is a lot of capital that is chasing a relatively lesser number of assets across the country today. Bangalore, the largest office market in the country, is a prime example. Any large institutional fund will be struggling today to look at any under construction or operational assets to buy. And you've seen what the Blackstone, Brookfields, Canadian pension funds, any and every have done over the last 3 years, have become the largest landlords, commercial landlords there are in the country. So that will continue. I think it's the fundamentals of how you run your business is what will define. But I don't think if funding availability of capital is a challenge at all. Ram, back to you.
So you're clearly saying funding is not a challenge from both of you. There are enough partners ready to partner with you, both from an equity structure and a structured debt format to continue the growth, which is great to hear, guys. I truly believe India has the opportunity and there is enough demand. Obviously, we've seen some blip in 2020. And despite COVID, I think India did very well in terms of absorptions despite COVID. I think India actually did way better than most parts of the Western world, I would say, Europe and the Americas. So,
just to give just a perspective, everybody is comparing 19 to 20, so I keep telling people
it's a wrong comparison.
It's a wrong comparison. 20 being an aberration year for the real estate market. If you take a 5-year average, India's actually done quite well. The dip is there, but it's marginal. It's around 15-20% is the dip overall. if you take 19 as in isolation and look at 20, then it looks pretty drastic. But if you look at the overall markets, I think most established markets like Bangalore, Hyderabad, Chennai, all these markets have done reasonably well
Across
compared
India,
to
across India, I totally
across
agree.
India. Yeah.
It's a wrong, and I've seen the papers carry stuff comparing to 2019. Oh, the markets dipped. It's a totally wrong comparison. I truly believe that we've done very well despite COVID. The occupier community still has a lot of interest in India. The corporations around the world have a lot of focus on India, and India will continue to grow. You will obviously see a lot more offshoring and outsourcing coming to India. One, we have the manpower and the success of people being able to deliver despite COVID has been fantastic, whether it's working more remotely or even partially going back to work. People have delivered, unlike the Western world. So India for sure will see that growth coming in 21 and beyond.
I had a couple of thoughts to share on.
Yeah, sure.
So just building on what you'd said, if I could just leave 3 or 4 pointers on the table, I couldn't have agreed more. The number of GICs or the kind of growth that we've seen in the commercial real estate market over the last 5 years, the number of GICs who have set up offices, and you know this, almost about 45% of most GICs have India as their GICs outside of their home country. The number of GICs that have come in India over the last, I'd say, 5 to 8 years, perhaps a similar number of about 50 million square feet there and thereabouts were expected between a 19 to perhaps a 21, 22. 30% of I'd say the overall absorption that may happen between a 32 or 45 million if you're optimistic. You touched upon around the fact that, and again, the World Bank, most large employers have this data. I'm also for, of course, India's positioning geographically, the employable workforce between, I'd say, 25 to 28, the average age is 29 in India. 60% of your employable, young, newer employable workforce, and that is amongst India's biggest trends. So most occupiers will have that, not to forget. So with the newer US government, etc., coming in, the pressure that most organizations today will have on their bottom line, outsourcing will only increase. But overall, the landscape that we've got, from perhaps larger offices to smaller touchdown offices, the number of seats, etc., and everything that you mentioned, we're not keeping in mind the mental health and well-being aspects on how the employable workforce, which is social in nature, we spoke about co-living, of course, co-working, and so on and so forth. Imagine these people being secluded to their homes and working there. Most occupiers that Ram, you, I, all of us have spoken to are very, very keen to come back to the offices. Sans drawing up a line, and once, it's just the nature of this virus. Once there is overall confidence that comes back to the market for reasons that I shared, I'm confident that people would like to come back and draw a line between their professional lives and personal lives.
Thanks, Ritesh. Shreesh, coming back to you. As an architect, you've heard what developers are talking about. Both Thiru and Ritesh shared their views. You've shared your views from an overall space requirement increase, waste management, very important point on how do we look at it, what do we create within environments, and obviously funding and cost going up. Do you think cost is really going to go up? Because end of the day, the occupier has to be willing to pay for sustainability, willing to pay for all these additions, efficiency changes, etc. Do you think as an architect, will you get the same efficiencies? What's your take on that?
It's a very good and very pertinent question, Ram, you have put. And since the developers are also here, I would like to put my few thoughts in a concise way. Yes, the costs will go up, but at what is the cost to cost increase? I would say health is first. That comes first. And as architects, we are responsible for our clients to give a healthy environment. And what is the percentage of the cost change? Basically, it will be, yes, increase, but very negligible. When I say negligible, it is only modifications of certain engineering aspects and creating few spaces wherein we have dedicated health centers. Like in our projects, we are hell-bent on having first aid and healthcare centers in our all projects across Reliance. That should be one important criteria. So I would say cost will be marginally increased, but if it is designed well, when it is thought of well, it will not have a major impact on the commercial part or a cost part. Cost of construction will not increase, but the yes, space requirement will increase, which we can very well develop into, get it developed into various levels at convenient circulation method with convenient circulation methodology. As far as engineering is concerned, yes, we have to look in a different way, wherein spatial engineering designs, elements, equipment, and aspects have to be considered. First and foremost, we as architects are now thinking of going to the sanctioning authorities and the BMCs of various cities to have certain laws change because they impact on design. And it's not that COVID has taught us this. It was always a fight between sanctioning authorities and we as designers to have logical conclusions or logical laws to create design buildings so that convenience and customer experience is also increased. So yes, we are approaching them to have certain modifications done into development control rules, floor space index, floor coverage, ground floor space coverage area limitations, what they have to change. Once they change, yes, the cost of construction or method will not increase, but the space requirement increases. So we have to have a clear understanding between the cost of construction and space requirements. Spaces are costly, yes, but execution is not that costly compared to the space cost of land. I would say in a nutshell, I would put it will not be a marginal, it will not be a drastic increase, but yes, there will be a certain impact on cost requirements. Yes.
Because truly costs are way higher in the West compared to India, whether you look at matured markets like a Singapore, Hong Kong, or even European costs or cost in Americas. Cost of construction and labor, of course, is very, very expensive. Obviously, technology in terms of construction will change the dynamics with the labor challenges India could face going forward.
But you know, Ram, sorry to interject. I would like to add here. As an architect, I am from the old school of design, wherein we were always taught to have cost-effective designs. What do you mean by it's a very relative term? But there are methods people have now started realizing that there are various methods which are cost-effective, a good detailing, a good design, a well thought of functional requirements. See, we are like, I'll cite one example to you regarding the elevational facades, what we call the glass facades. In India, do we require those? I always fight in various forums. I challenge them, we do not require glass facades, because of which, due to the existing atmospheric temperature, the amount of sunlight what we get in India is huge. We are actually allowing the heat to come into the building envelope, thereby increasing the cost of air conditioning, the electrical requirement. So these are all Western requirements, you know. When I say Western requirement, their sunlight levels are very low. Their highest temperature, they get panicky when it is about 38, 40 degrees Celsius. Whereas we in India are on an average 45 degrees in peak summer. So do we require this? We need to restrict sunlight, whereas European countries want sunlight inside. So these are few elements which have to be thought of, wherein a detailing and a simple architectural design, engineering design plays an important role to bring down the costs also. Regular maintenance, regular servicing of various equipments, proper space planning, required circulation. It's a big topic to discuss, but I'll someday when I get a chance, we will have a talk another day. Yeah.
Sure, absolutely. No, you're very right. Obviously, design change is going forward, and sustainability. If you want to implement well and even lead platinum certification, there are specific materials that are expected to use, the quantum of glass, etc. Obviously, city to city, things do change, but obviously, design features and everyone wants to look at obviously bringing in a lot of quality finishes from the exterior and the buildings to look way smarter, more in tune to the modern environment, the look and feel. So obviously that's a long topic for us to debate. Absolutely.
But how much functional they are, that's also a big question.
Yes, absolutely. Great. Shailendra, coming back to you, from your perspective, obviously the manufacturing sector has obviously seen challenges during the COVID era, and obviously a lot of the manufacturers like yourself have actually gone back on track with all the safety precautions and the protocols to get manufacturing back. You touched upon labor, which is a very, very important aspect that touches the overall industry for us. So from an overall RE perspective, what would be your take in terms of investments and touching upon manufacturing specifically with India, obviously looking at becoming another large hub to attract a lot more companies, and post the COVID era, obviously everyone's talking of China plus one. Do you think India will continue to attract and bring in more international manufacturers to India? Because while they look at India from this part of the world, the eastern part of the world, you also have competing countries like Philippines, you have Vietnam, you have Cambodia, you have Thailand, which again compete with India. So from that perspective, what's your take on that? You're on mute. You're on mute.
Very well put, Ram. We know that India is a unique country and it has variety of customers. Unlike Europe and America, Europe, the larger thought process of a consumer, how he thinks, is perhaps same, maybe 2, 3, or 4 types. Here you put 10 customers and all 10 of them would be thinking on a different paradigm and different tangent. Their choices vary a lot. So India definitely is having the potential to attract a lot of foreign investors in India in real estate commercial space. And thinking on a consumer point of view, investor will always invest where he feels that he has a taker for that. Whatever money he is investing, it is coming back to him with properly investment cycle is completed. For example, Thirumal has said that millions space, commercial space is waiting for investment. And I totally second with Ritesh also that funding was never an issue. But the funds will come to the idea, which is the better idea. If millions of space is going to have those similar looking malls, hospitals, hotels, perhaps investor will not be interested. Now with a new design, as Shreesh said, new design of thinking and new way of architecture, do we have anything unique to convince our investor? For example, I give you an example that we as a consumer used to visit malls, spend whole day. Wife used to love shopping, kids enjoy a lot, and the man was just dragging behind. There were so many showrooms, branded showrooms, Indian food courts, multiplex, everything is there. In this new scenario, can we offer virtual offices in the mall to that guy who is mentally there, not there, physically there? So there are so many brands you can shop for, and a consumer like me buys things quickly and rest 4 hours. What will he do? Can we offer offices there? So why not any developer things on those lines? Hotels. Perhaps I, as a corporate traveler, will go to the hotel and will not stay, finish off my work and come back. And typically, if you see in present scenario, in a 5-star hotel, there are thousands of rooms, but only 2 offices, 2 boardrooms, where he can conduct the meeting. So now this balance has to change. So people who are going to have a night stay would be very limited. People who would be going and hire a room for their meetings in any other city with their distributors or their team members, this would be more. So those hotel designs has to be converted for the existing set of properties which we have, and new properties which are coming have to be redesigned. So if you tell this to the investor, this is the new thing which we are doing in my mall or in my hotel space, perhaps investor would be more than happy to invest here. Why not? That's it, Ram.
Thanks, Shavendra. No, obviously flexibility is the key
Yeah.
going forward in terms of design, no doubt. When you look at hotels, etc., repurposing of assets is very important. Obviously, locations do matter.
Yeah.
But I think all of us have got used to quite a bit of virtual meetings now, unless you need to travel, and obviously travel has come down. But we've seen an increase as things have opened up in the last few months of a lot of us traveling a lot more to meet our customers, no doubt about that. Coming back to you, Thiru, and I know we have a hard stop in the next few minutes, just to do a sum up. So we touched upon demand and growth. We touched upon investments. Obviously, India continuing to be a focus for the corporate occupiers to continue on the commercial side. What is one last takeaway from a future perspective on how would you future proof? Obviously, you want to make sure you create a differentiator product to attract and retain your tenants, and you want to look at occupiers who come to you, to your developments. You'd want to offer them flexibility going forward in terms of growth, because obviously everyone is talking about saying, hey, I don't necessarily need the space right now, but I will look at my overall portfolio strategies and look at something a lot more long term. So what's your one takeaway for continuing to pay the differentiator game in the RE sector?
Ram, there are multiple, there's not one single takeaway we can give, but I think, what has held us good in the past and it's going to hold us good in the future is build sustainable buildings, engage with the B2C more than the B2B. I think B2B engagement is anyway happening at some level when you are doing a transaction, but I think keeping the B2B2C employees happy, giving them social infrastructure, which makes their life easier when they come. They can, come to work and bring family when required. I think a sustainable environment, a safe environment, and giving them, spaces which are comfortable is, I think, what we've been doing and will continue to do, and it has held us good during all stages and cycles of the real estate market. Yes, obviously, technology is going to play a big role. We have already invested a huge amount of money in technology. We have brought in a very, very robust application, which is going to be, which is already rolled out as a test case within most of our projects, wherein employees, from the time they leave home to the time they enter the building, they bring in guests and ordering their food and getting concierge service. All that is available for them on one single platform when their clients sign up with us. It's called the MEX app. It's been we've been beta testing it for the last year, and now we're ready to roll it out. So from access control to smart parking to visitor management to ordering food either from the food courts and the marketplaces we have, and also bringing on vendors who can offer them various different services from across the platform onto that. So I think it's going to be a mix of great technology, engagement, and quality spaces, which will hold good for anybody in the future.
I totally agree with you. Technology will play a big role going forward. In fact, your platform is something on the lines of what we have globally called Host, which is a very fantastic platform that we've implemented around a lot of buildings around the world, and starting to implement in India for a lot of our developer clients as well as occupier clients. So that's fantastic. Ritesh, coming back to you.
If Thiru, from a developer's perspective, covered a lot. I'll perhaps just say three things and then hand that back to you, Ram. I'd say the environment. I'd say the social collaborative environment that you're able to offer to your employee partners is perhaps the biggest differentiator. In all conversations, etc., that we've had, and as I shared earlier, we're not just confident, but optimistically confident or upbeat that most people would want to come back to environments that they've built, that they enjoy, that they'll collaborate in. And we're banking, perhaps banking's the right word, Ram, but the age group percentage, socio nature of the new gen workforce will drive them back to offices and environments. So I perhaps just continue to put a lot of focus on that. Intelion as the commercial real estate brand, again, Ram, everything has changed. All of our new developments, the Intelion brand is our intelligent buildings. You will see more technology. But I'm also someone, Ram, who believes that once most people have had a grip on the very contagion nature of the virus, and once people start to realize with the booster shots, etc., that are coming in, people would like to come back. And of course, as I said, everything is rejigs, intelligent spaces, collaborative spaces, flexible spaces, but we're banking on the environment that we'd like to offer to our partners. Back to you, Ram.
No, and I think the key is working with your occupier clients to offer that flexibility to them, to look at what are their growth plans, and then work around that was again something very important that occupiers will expect from the developer partners. I want to thank all our panelists for a fantastic session this evening. Thank you, all of you. Great thoughts, and thank you.
Thank you, Ram.
Thank you, Ram. Thank you, Thiru.
Thank you, Ram.
Thank you, Suresh. Thank you,
Ritesh.
Shailendra. Thanks, Ritesh.
Yeah.
Good meeting you all.
Likewise.
Shailendra, thank you.
Hello, everyone. I'm Shailendra Veer, National Sales Head from HIL's Birla Aircon Building Solutions business. There are things known and things unknown, and in between are the doors. And when the doors of perceptions are cleansed, everything appears as it is, infinite. While citing these legendary words of an American poet, I take this opportunity on behalf of HIL's Birla Aircon Building Solutions business to thank the esteemed panelists who have brought a number of unknown things in the arena of knowns. I also thank to the audience who were quite patient all throughout and wholeheartedly participated. Last but not the least, I also thank iDAC, the organizers, without whom the event would have not been possible. Thank you. Thank you for your time. See you.
We would like to thank our esteemed speakers, audience, and our sponsors, HIL and Blue Star, for the summit. Stay safe. Thank you.